Well, we'll go ahead and get started. We just have a short period of time here. I appreciate Nino and Lieutenant Burke Beckler and Chief Painter for compiling that information that you forwarded to us. It's real helpful. And I'm just going to have you guys just kind of go over what you sent to me. I'm going to start out with the mayor, just to go over the Healthy Medina, how successful it's been, and if you know of any plans for 2020 that's going to change anything, or
well, we're proposing some changes in the collective bargaining agreements.
okay.
For one thing, to incentivize more people to get involved. I mean, we're pretty fortunate. If you look at wellness, I was just at that state convention down in
Right.
Columbus. I didn't stay for the whole thing. I went down to get the award and the lunch. But talking to some of the other folks, we're at 74 to 77% participation, which is pretty unheard of
I was gonna
for
say,
programs
that's
like that.
above the top.
Yes. So right now, we're at 12% if you take part and 16% if you don't. And we'll talk in the executive session. I probably shouldn't say it here, what our proposal is for the unions. Well, I'll just say it. So we're trying to push 20% non-participation because that would be more of a financial incentive to do so, and then raise the 12% to 13% based on the wage package that we did. So just historically, in 2016, as a result of the Healthy Medina program and keeping, what the insurance companies look at every time they go to renew is how many dollars we paid in claims or how many dollars we paid in premiums, and they look at what they paid in claims. And they like that to be somewhere in the low to mid 70 cents on the dollar, because the rest is administrative and paying for their own insurance for stopgap measures and things like that. And we were successful in doing that to where we didn't have an increase in 16. We had over a 7% decrease in 17, and then almost another 5% in 18. So from 2016 to present, we've seen a 12% decrease. So now in 2020, we're looking at 8.5% increase over where we were way back in 16, but that still doesn't make up for the reductions we got already.
Great.
So that still tells me that we're on the right path. The other thing is we're able to take a look at what the reasonings were for the high uses of the insurance in this 12-month period, and it's not January to December. It's because we want to get it done and get it to council earlier. So it's like from maybe October to the following September, somewhere like that. It's a 12-month window. So they look at it and then they compare that, how much premium versus how much claims, back and forth and back and forth. When we had two significant blips, which were not something that's recurring, like a person's going to have to be treated for this for the rest of their life, or a cancer or whatever. It was individual things that are kind of treated and it's done. And not to say that we can predict that other things may not happen, but overall, it's working well. And I shared with some of the folks down at that conference, and I'll share with you, that you could really see the difference here at City Hall. The number of people using the workout room, what people are eating for lunch, people are salads and fruits and, all kinds of things that before this program, I don't know if I ever saw somebody with a salad or whatever. So, it's making an impact. Part of that is the educational component, talking about nutrition, talking about healthy weights, blood pressure, and how all those things are interrelated with one another. And overall, it's going well.
You miss work time and. Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Nino, we'll go ahead with you. You gave a nice handout here.
Okay.
For the sanitation, and go ahead and let
Thank you, sir. I wanted to get it out to you beforehand, so I know we had limited time. We had a really good year in sanitation, obviously, most importantly, with minimal injuries and lacerations here and there. That's always important. You can see our totals with respect to tonnages. Bless you. We paid total in tip fees $1,182,136, and that was for 27,100 tons and 3,510 loads total to the CPF. We went from $42 to $44.50. That was that increase, and then subsequently, unfortunately, we are facing, as of January 1, the rate at $50 with this new Rumpke installation. So we're not sure yet what that will bring with respect to what they'll take and what's gonna be the yield. One thing I wanted to point out on the commercial residential, out of that 27,000 tons, you'll see that typically in the past, commercial and residential were always split in pretty evenly, 12,000, 13,000 each. So commercial is less, and if you notice in the years, I'm looking at what would be probably the second page from all the listed tonnages. And the commercial rear loaders we did away with because of potential injury to our employees. So everything went to front load and roll-off. So what was shifted, if you look at the roll-offs, they increased from 17, 18, and 2019, almost tripled.
Right.
That's where the remainder of the commercial loads that you're not seeing to equal the 12,000, if that makes sense. So that's still split residential, commercial, but we're just picking it up a different way, a safer way. At the same time, our yard waste program, it runs, as you folks know, from May to the end of November. That has an uptick. That's increased from when we started with 155 tons in 2017. We're increased by 22%. We were just 275 tons, so it's grown. And people are, encouraged by it. And like I told Mr. Lamb earlier, we believe in recycling. People may not say that because we don't have a curbside program, but the items that we handle from point A to point Z, at beginning to end, and we know that they're being recycled, we're going to be all in. And this is an example of being all in and doing things for our public. Just like the Christmas trees, and then the organic waste, that's to do with Sandridge, taking it to a digester. One place is in Worcester, and then the other place is in Liverpool. Overall, we have 7,570 residents, and we service 794 commercial entities, and that's weekly pickup,
Right.
day in, day out. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. I don't want to belabor things. If you have questions with regard to the amounts, the handouts, one thing I did want to point out, the county sanitary engineer has been giving us a 0.25%, which Keith is aware, off of the bill. So if you see the savings on the second sheet that just has the CPF totals, that's going away in January, as we understand, because the county sees it as another funding mechanism that they feel like they don't want to offer anymore. Because we paid our bills, finance was good about turning around after it was been reconciled, but that $8,932, which you see for the tonnage, is going away, so we won't receive that anymore going forward.
Any questions from your members?
A slight downtick in the residential, do you attribute that to the yard waste going up to pick up?
A little bit, and we talked about this when those drop-off bins first started. One of the commissioners had mentioned, and that's why, but actually our residential side was increasing with those bins being in place, because this is the 5th year. But the yard waste, I think people are understanding better what to put out and what not to put out, and it's an education piece that I think our folks have done a good job from the office to the field with letting people know. So I think it is, to answer your question, partially.
The education part, it seems to me that that's probably a key to, why you've been successful with, if you look at the Christmas trees, the leaves, the yard waste, that you continually talk about those, and you continually, give information on them, the city does, and continually talk about the dates and when the pickups are gonna start, when are the pickups gonna end, and how do you do it. And that is an important part, I think, about the possibility of reducing the waste, the stuff that goes in and is weighed and we pay for. I think that's, to your credit, to the administration's credit, that you have
Thank you for that.
done that so well. And when we look around, I'm sure we see it, the yard waste things that people put out, because they put all kinds of ad hoc signs on, people are really up for doing that. And seriously, I think if there was more of an education program coming from the county, we would probably see even more benefit. But I think that's critical thing the city's done, and compliment you on that.
Well, thank you for that. And you know, we've had some glitches. We have to teach our guys because we've had some mix-ups, throwing away yard waste in the regular truck and commingling, but we work to correct that, so.
Well, and again, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here when I keep bringing it up, but I've never, in my 16 years plus here at the city, I've never had a negative comment about any of your sanitation workers, and they always seem to go out of their way to help people when they recognize, like the mayor has mentioned several times, when they recognize somebody's having problems, that they're, you know, it's not a job that, I think most people recognize it's not a job that they would want to do. And these gentlemen do it with, a lot of times with a smile on their face, and they're just very respectful and very kind to the citizens, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Denny. And also, just to add on, you labored the talk, we do that with 29-hour employees, so these guys are part-time.
Part-time guys.
And-
Right.
Yes, and they're 29 hours, and half that staff, of half the 16 are 29-hour employees, but, so thank you for the acknowledgement.
And I again, I say, whether it be the sanitation, the police department, parts, it doesn't matter. It starts at the top, and I think the employees, you know, carry on what you guys all represent to them, so. Paul, you had a question?
It was asked already, so.
Okay, thank you. John?
When you mentioned the rates, when's the $10 coming in? Is that-
January 1, so we just paid our December bill, finance, just.
Well, what are we gonna do about that? Are we gonna pay
That's,
it?
I don't know if that's, go ahead.
We raised the rates, and if you remember, we had held off on raising the trash rates for a long time because we didn't know what.
Yeah,
to
no,
do.
He's talking about the rates from the CPF.
Right.
registered-
Yeah, I don't know,
Right,
the
no.
question is not whether we raise rate, are we gonna pay the $10?
To the county.
That's my question.
I thought you were asking if we
No.
could, we can.
Right,
Because they just did it, and now we're back up to a higher rate.
50.
I think,
I wouldn't do it.
I mean, you'll have to take that up with the law director, but if we don't pay it, they're gonna hit us with late fees. I think if we wanna challenge it, the appropriate vehicle, in my mind, to challenge it is not to not pay it, but rather to challenge them legally over the rate. Because if we don't pay it, they're gonna hit us with a bunch of fees and so on, and if we eventually lose, we're gonna have to pay all those late fees. I'd rather not do that.
I mean, I personally, we should look at that, to challenge them, because that's a big,
And we've discussed that, yeah.
that's a big increase that we shouldn't just roll over and say, okay, we'll pay it. I mean, I think it's.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just asking that we
Their
go about
claim,
it.
their claim is, John, that they're improving the commercial recycling, and that's what this extra money pays for.
Yeah, but we know there's no recycling happening, so why would we, I think we should challenge that, but it's up to council, we could give an order or directive that we want to challenge, and we should think about that.
Yeah, well, they can prove that they're taking the paper, they've got a contract for the paper, and the cardboard and that, as I understand it, Nina.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but it just started, so, I mean, here we are at the end of January, we've not seen it, and a bill, I've not seen any paperwork, but that's what they're claiming, yes.
Yeah, so that's what Scott Miller told me, is they have a contract in place that all the paper and all that cardboard that they gather, it can go directly there. This is now the commercial, not the ones going in the bins. The ones going in the bins is up to the Kimball that then is supposed to sort it and recycle it.
Correct.
Whether they are or not, that's up for debate as well.
No, I get it. I just think that we gotta think hard, I mean, we're back up to a rate that we were before all this started happening.
What did he get? It was 60, what was the maximum rate got up to?
6175.
6175.
And we may have some options that we can look at, and I think Keith brought up a good point, you know, maybe, you know, we should challenge that, but we'll have to wait and see what Mr. Huber says, and how, when we get our first bill, and go from there. Is there any other questions for Nino from sanitation?
No, but I was thinking, considering we've got the, you know, we're working on the courthouse issue with the county at the same time, maybe if we're gonna meet on Tuesday, it might be, I don't know if that's someplace where we'd wanna bring up that,
I'm sorry.
He missed what you were
Since
saying.
we've got the, you know, we're trying to work on an issue with the courthouse with the county, maybe if we're gonna meet with the county on Tuesday, you know, probably that'd be a good thing, maybe to add to the agenda and see if we can, you know,
I don't think the meeting will ever be over then. I mean,
We
I
can
think
talk trash for a
I
while.
think there's a limited amount of time they have to meet with us, and I think probably the whole town will.
what do you mean there's a limited amount of time?
If I remember correctly, we're meeting at 4, because they gotta have another, there's another, something happening later on, at 5 or 5:30?
Yeah, well,
They have a commitment.
Bill Hudson was the one that I arranged it with.
Yeah.
Bill was at the Main Street Awards when John asked me, can you see if they'd be willing to meet with us? And so I asked Bill about the following Tuesday, because Branstad or Carroll's gonna be in town anyway, at noon, to meet with the county facilities committee. Could they just hang around and we have this meeting then? And he said, well, I've got a 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and a 7 o'clock. So if we can do it before that, I'd be willing to do it. So we set it at 4, but then we likely have to be done by 4:45 or 10 to 5 or something.
Yeah, I just think like some other things, it's better sometimes to be face to face with people when everybody's together, where you
Yeah.
can have a discussion rather than, you know.
I agree with you.
No, I have not.
So we could probably set another meeting up for council and the commissioners to talk about those issues, or maybe the sanitation, you know, have Beth and Amy come.
We usually have once a year a joint meeting, right?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
What about that?
We haven't scheduled it yet,
Okay.
so we could do that now, I guess.
Great. Yeah.
It's not kind of timely, I mean,
Right.
since they increased the fee, I mean.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Well, thank you, Nino. Next, we're gonna go to the short timer with Chief Painter. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I was kind of surprised at that article myself, but it's another story. Overall, we're in a great position with the department. We finished the year out with 1,311 fire calls, which is up about 12% from 2018, and 60 of them were actual fires. Friday is still our busiest day, and the 6 p.m. block is our busiest time every day for whatever reason. But having said that, building and structures are all at the 25-year mark. We try to do all our maintenance day in and day out. Probably the only big thing coming up is we're gonna need a new roof on Station 3 this year. Over the last 10 years, we replaced, there's 2 sections at Station 2, both were completed. There's 4 section roofs at Station 1. All the flat roofs have been replaced, but there was a warranty job like a couple of years before I got hired where they replaced it, so that gable roof over the base is in good shape. So just basically that gabled area over Station 3 is gonna need to be some service. Our big project this year is we're updating the locker rooms and the washrooms at Station 1. All the plumbing is just given out, so faucets and plumbing and whatnot, that's the big thing there. And we're hoping to remove, we call it an Explorer trailer. It used to be a pub ed, it was donated about 18 years ago, and we don't use it for a pub ed, and an Eagle Scout project, and they made it like gear room for the Explorers and that, but it's just a place for the bees and the woodchucks, and it's just, so we're hoping to find a home for that this year and get that moved out of there. Again, apparatus is in good shape. Having the in-house mechanics has been a blessing. They're able to get on stuff, we've had them come out to the scene already when the trucks go down, but they're on top of it, and the new guys are taking over, Chuck and them are doing a great job for us. They're like a third of the price of going to Williams, Detroit, and they're right here in town. Otherwise, we'd be shuttling vehicles, and it's just been a blessing. We're anticipating no purchases. We do have the 2 pumpers, it's a 95 and a 97, we're going to do on gov deals. Talking with them, they said hold off till February because most municipalities, they're not going to have a budget till then anyhow.
Right.
So we kind of stalled it down over the holidays. And then all the township apparatus, we've gotten that up to snuff. We were kind of misled when we got in there, they kind of looked at stuff, but short of oil changes, there really wasn't any maintenance on it. So the last 2 years, been beating us up maintenance-wise. Probably the majority of it's been on their vehicles, getting them up to speed, and just basic neglect is what it had. Tools and equipment, we're good on all that stuff. The only big thing is our grant for SCBA's. You guys approved it last July, and we made it to the last round when we're kicked out. So we're hoping this year, we'll be coming next finance to get a new one approved. So we're hoping that we get all the way through with that this year. And then personnel staffing, we're doing okay, but we're always in need of personnel. Seems like the young guys, they come in, they get hired, and they're gone. Plus, there's a bigger commitment for training hours and that from the state and what they're required. It's just not like the old days, it's just too much. Our Explorer program is real active. We got about 24 students in it now, and it's kind of picked up. They had a change of instructors about 4 years ago at the Career Center, and we didn't hire anyone from there for 2 years. We used to hire 3, 4, 5 young folks, and we didn't, for a couple of years, we didn't hire anyone. They had a high failing rate and whatnot. So now that we're kind of training them, we're hoping to hire 2 or 3 more out of that group. But we're at the point now where we're going to have to look outside. We always have a 5-mile radius from the stations. We have to look outside that radius possibly, which compromises the response for coming in for staffing's fine, but coming in the middle of the night, they're kind of far away. So we're juggling that right now. But that's really the only, and that's just growing pains. That's nationwide. The volunteers just aren't there like they used to be.
Well, I know, recruiting is always a big problem, and I know the state and nationally, they've, as far as continuing education, they've upped the requirements, threefold in the last 4 or 5 years. Now, what I read in the last year is that for paramedics, they're looking at, for the next 5 years, they're going to require a bachelor's degree to get your paramedic certification. Have you hearing anything with firefighting as far as?
They're always lagging behind the EMS, but they are requiring a lot more specifics. I used to, as a chief, we provided training with certified instructors and sign off. They're not accepting that anymore.
Okay.
We can only percentage, we do online training, only percentage of that they'll accept. They're breaking it down to 3 categories. So some of it's, we actually have to draw up a lesson plan, get approval. It's almost like a certified course for so many hours. So yeah, they're clamping down the same way the paramedics have. We're just about 5-10 years
I mean,
behind them.
it's good in one hand, but on the other hand, we went through a 20-year period where we actually had a part-time volunteer staff, part-time paid volunteer, that's obviously gone away. It's part-time staff now.
It's part-time. If they're not here, and that's the problem, if they're not here, they're working somewhere else. So they're not here on the off hours. If we get the major incident, we're kind of like an island. For us to call Brunswick or Wadsworth, because nobody around us can cover their calls, let alone help us.
Right.
So that's every day. That's the only concern I have day to day.
Well, let me be the first to thank you for your service, and we got a few more months with you here. So. Thank you, Bob. Lieutenant Burke.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it too. Let me get a second to thank you.
Third thing.
Here, third.
Anybody else have any questions for the fire department? I'm sorry.
Let's save
So,
them. Police department.
well, so just let me mention this. So Denny and I were at the fire district discussion meeting, and Chief Painter was as well. But what our plan is now is to bring the fire district group back together, and Bob's going to present a plan where we organize 24/7 coverage. We've got to get a cost of that, see if the 2 townships are willing to split it. If the city paid 50, they each paid the other 25. And that way we would have coverage, and that may give us a little bit of leeway with what the chief's talking about, because maybe you have within the 5-mile radius for those that are going to be calls out, but the ones that are on one of the duty crews, is that important because they're here working.
Yeah.
30 hours are here. And I'm doing my best. It's becoming a challenge, and as the chief said, trying to keep enough people, but to try to keep it part-time, working people, and avoid some of the extra costs that the other cities are seeing that want full-time. And Brunswick's a perfect example of it. I mean, they get 1 call and they have to call from mutual aid, because they're 4, even if it's a medic call, if you have 4 members and 2 are on a medic call or fire next call, they can't go out, without some assistance. So we're trying our best to avoid that.
Yeah, I appreciate the work you're doing on the district. I mean, that concept is so valuable to everybody involved, financially and operationally. It's just great.
Anybody else, any questions for Chief Painter? So Lieutenant Burke, you got the floor, sir. Thank you for your, what you submitted also.
Well, just to kind of follow up on the fire real quick, I want to thank Chief Painter and his staff. We're continuing to cross-train our police officers as first responders for not only the medical calls, but also fire calls, so they can be of some assistance. on those types of calls. In the last year, we've had 4 additional officers go through the critical incident training, the crisis intervention training, to deal with emotionally disturbed or people with special needs. And that program, which is run by Alternative Paths, has been very successful for us. It helps a lot. A lot of families recognize the CIT badge that the officers, upon completion of the course, wear. And in some cases, we've actually been asked, is there a CIT officer available? Because it's nationally recognized, not only through NAMI, but people that have perhaps an autistic family member. It's well received by them. We have an officer currently assigned to the Secret Service Task Force. He's working with them. It's kind of a nice program. It's of no cost to the city, and there's very little time that he's actually spending with them. They're providing us with training and equipment, and a lot of what this goes back to is doing cell phone searches, computer searches. He'll have some certifications that he can do that, the admissible report, cut down on a lot of our turnaround time when we investigate cases involving these electronic devices or evidence that might be on them. Right now, we have to either send them out to another agency, sometimes up to Lakewood, sometimes up to BCI, and we get into a time constraint and be able to get the stuff back so that a trial could move forward in a timely manner. So that'll be a big asset to us. Probably the biggest project we accomplished this year was the transformation from Emergitech as our CAD RMS, computer-aided dispatch and records management system, to a Zerker platform. For the first time in Medina County, we have full interoperability with Medina County Sheriff's Office, with Seville, with Lodi, with Hinckley, and Medina and Montville Township. When there's an incident up in Hinckley, our officers can see the involvements of that person that may have also had an involvement down in Lodi. We didn't have that capability before. It took a meeting and sitting around a table and hoping everybody remembered all the facts, or knew the right questions to ask. Now it's very simple to type in a name or an address or a vehicle, and you can see all the involvements. So that information sharing that we now have is going to be a real improvement in investigations. Also, part of the other upgrade we did in dispatch is we moved from the 400 band radios, which have limited penetration, it's a system we've had forever, to a 700 band radio system. We no longer have dead spots in the city. There's very few dead spots in the entire county with the 700 system. That's great. And you know from years of LSD, you'd be out at Brookdale and dispatch couldn't hear you. We also, as part of this radio program, it was done in a collaborative manner with the Sheriff's Department. We have each other's channels. So if I have an officer that goes out to back up a sheriff's deputy or sheriff's deputy to come here, they can roll over to our channel, just the same as we can roll over to fire, we can roll over to LSD. Service just recently came onto the same system also. And it's working out really well. We are now starting to put in the March radio system. The March radio system is the radio system in the counties around us. This became real apparent a year ago, a little over a year ago, when we had an incident out at the hospital with a reported active shooter. We had agencies coming from out of the county. We had no way to communicate with them. We were literally taking our radios off, passing them out to teams where they began to search. So somebody would have a radio. So we have some type of command and control in the situation. Now it's just a matter of them flipping to our channel. Finally, we're currently up at our full authorization of 39 officers, which is nice. We are currently at 9 full-time dispatchers. We have we extended an offer to a week ago. We're in the process, and that'll bring us up to our authorized strength of 10. Our state standards require that 2 dispatchers be on 24 hours, 7 days a week now, and that'll keep us at that minimum. We've also put every dispatcher through in the last year through emergency medical dispatch training. Some of them, this is the second time they've gone through it, but we wanted to update everybody to the latest standards when we implemented the new cap. I want to thank you guys for your support of us.
Lieutenant, thank you, as always. I mean, you're just like the rest of the departments. Your department is exemplary for their professionalism, their dedication, and the men and women are every day in our thoughts and prayers for their safety, but you go above and beyond. Gentlemen, questions?
No, but just the one thing I wanted to mention is I think that integration of the police into those outreach programs, I think has been really healthy for the community too. The shop at the cop things and the other things that you do, bringing the policemen in contact in that friendly manner, has been good for us. And I appreciate all the efforts that go into that.
All right. Any other council members have any questions for Lieutenant Beckler? Okay, gentlemen, I thank you very much for the update. It's 6 o'clock, finance is ready to start. We're gonna take about a 2-minute break, just so some of us, the older ones, can maybe utilize the restroom.